Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. What's going on, guys? It's Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. It's 1:47 on the clock as we speak. It kind of boils down to 1:11 or 3, if that resonates or is significant to you. 111, I think that's like triple confirming new beginnings, if I'm not mistaken, or some initiation of identity, which definitely makes sense. And then with the 3, it's like wholeness, a completion, particularly of spirit, mind, and body. So yeah, I would say that is significant in some way, shape, or form. But we're going to use Intuitive Kev's iKev Tarot deck today. I don't know, I was just drawn to it, so that's what we're going to do and see what we get. All right. You know, I gotta position these cards. I love using Kev's cards because I feel the firepower. You know, there's a synergy in fire signs that, it's special. And so when I use these cards, like, I feel a more passion-driven transmission. So shout out to him. Side note, I just realized that there are Mean Girls tarot cards, and I must have them. So don't be surprised if they pop up. Well, I love Mean Girls, the movie. It's so funny. I even kind of like the second one that they did. But if you know, I love Tina Fey. So pretty much anything she's attached to, starring in, creating, writing, I'm here for it. And Mean Girls is definitely a classic to me. 4 of Swords, just as classic as Clueless, right? 4 of Swords is here. Somebody's chilling, just resting, relaxing, taking it easy, resting your mind, if not physically resting. Rest assured is what I'm hearing, which came up heavy in yesterday's message. So let's see. The Hierophant. I've never seen the Hierophant in this deck. Cool. That's the Hierophant. What's the Hierophant got to do with the 4 of Swords? I heard resting on your laurels. I think that means kind of like resting on your truth. What does that mean? Let me see. Like kind of resolved or absolved to, let me see, because I might be wrong. Let's see. Resting on, shoot. Oh, hold on, y'all. Resting on your laurels. Come on, bruh. Whatever it is, it don't want me to know. Resting on your laurels, man. Resting on your laurels, being so satisfied. Oh, wow. Being so satisfied with past successes that you stop putting in the effort to achieve. Oh, wait, so this might not be great. But I didn't feel it as a negative thing, but that you might stop putting in effort to achieve further progress, resulting in complacency. It warns against relying solely on previous accomplishments, as this leads to stagnation and risk being overtaken by competitors. That was not what I was expecting. That's not what I felt. It felt a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more positive and productive than that. But in this case, I mean, maybe someone that has achieved a high status of power and authority, maybe even some type of prestige or position in a company, perhaps, or in some organization, or whatever prestige they found themselves acquiring could be a source, like I don't know how to say this, like they could be complacent in that power, thinking that it's, like it's the highest authority, or high, like they have reached their pinnacle. That has so many different connotations when we're talking about the Hierophant, because I'm really feeling it in this case like more of a religious thing, where how sometimes folks get so consumed by their organized religious practices, or even, it could even be much more general, more practical than that, where it's like the way you do life, or just how the way life goes, that you don't aspire to anything more or higher, to be curious about anything more, may even, I just heard, offend you, or be off-putting in some way, in the most, bare bone sense. I can definitely see that religiously, where folks feel like this is all I've known, this is how I've been grown or groomed, and I won't entertain anything else outside of that. If it's not coming from my pastor, not coming from my spiritual leader or the good book itself, whatever religious text we're talking about here, there's no openness for it. There's no consideration of it. So I kind of see that, but let's see what else we got. Because like I said, that's not what I was thinking. And what are laurels then? Are those the accomplishments? Yeah, like I might need to do a deeper dive. And then, here it is. The Hierophant is a 5, so that signifies change. What was I saying in the very beginning? Oh, I said something about a triple down on, and that's the Trinity energy, a triple down on initiation of a new identity or of a new beginning altogether, mind, body, and spirit. So okay, this is coming together. Yeah, so it could be, that tension between spirituality and religion in some form, where there often is contention about what is divine or what is demonic or what is God ordained versus what is blasphemous or sinful, or whatever the case may be. And those that particularly feel they have a certain level of authority on such things, based on their own understandings or their own practices, oftentimes are not willing to really stretch outside of that box, but so much before they're just uncomfortable. Like there's a certain comfort and complacency that is afforded by just dealing with, the information, the education, the indoctrination that you're used to. Sometimes things outside of that box just feel dangerous, or threatening to that sense of security. All right, let's see. Ooh, 5 of Pentacles. Ooh, black magic. Oh man, what are we talking about here? Well, sometimes they are. Especially not in the right hands. Emphasis on this grubby hand here on the black magic card, but sometimes they're not, so it just depends on, because quiet as it's kept, or maybe not so quiet, really, religion can be used in diabolical ways. Doctrine can be used to dominate or contain or confine, as we well know. The Bible itself has been weaponized, not just from, what's the right word? Not an organizational position, but from the establishments, for establishments control and ulterior motives, but also individually, where people can take certain passages and scriptures and in some ways they can become spells, and in some ways the scriptures that we even recite unknowingly or unintentionally can become spells upon us. So that's all here. Like, you could put a spell on yourself or curse yourself through some of the passages in the Bible if you're not careful. But there's something here like black magic and Five of Pentacles. It's definitely not prosperous practice, whatever we're talking about here. It could even be some type of brotherhood or secret society that poses itself to be an affront for the divine, or with that facade of, grace and faith and goodwill and benevolence, but behind the scenes, it's just taking advantage of people that are unaware or that are not awakened. So it could just be the revelation of what is known generally, especially by a lot of folks in the spiritual community, but maybe the actual, key players, big fish, prominent leaders perhaps are really taking a hit, whether it be on public display or in their personal lives, maybe where no one can even tell. Five of Pentacles, that could be happening in secret for someone where you wouldn't even know. Certain individuals that are prominent characters. I'm thinking like those mega pastors and things that are on display for in the spirit, in the religious religious capacities that they serve as prosperous figures. Things could be coming to light about either certain secretive practices or practices that are contrary to what their messages preach, and also the particular like what their livelihood may actually be, like the truth of their existence, what their reality truly is behind the scenes. Maybe as to how they are affording these great lifestyles and inflated living experiences. I mean, that's happening anyway, but I don't know why we're talking about it, so it might be something that is going to be even, maybe it's a shocking occurrence that's about to be Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, that's about to be put on display, like somebody major. I ain't gonna call no names because I don't want to project that energy onto nobody, but it could be like kind of astounding who is being called to the carpet or exposed in the light. And also, here's the practical aspect with the Hierophant. It could be establishments like corporations that are big name, big box, almost seemingly monopolies in some way, shape, or form that are about to be exposed for their like what's really going on in the company, either behind the scenes or by leaders, or what their practices or some sort like that, or that what they may be projecting through like their records, their financial records, and even the stock market and things like that, is something quite less profitable, like under the table, let's say. Like that companies we might be shocked to learn that certain big name brands are actually like on the edge of bankruptcy or collapse, you know. And here it is, like the piece that may or may not be revealed, because the public may just see the fall from grace in whatever way we're talking about. But what may not be known is the reason why, and it's the karmic justice of things that have been going on behind the veil, under the table, behind the scenes, maybe even some unethical practices of the company, organization, or person altogether that you may never know about. All that is kind of pushed into the light is that, damn, so and so is doing bad right now. What's going? Somebody's fate is taking a nosedive, and comparative to what they were experiencing and what was on display. The general public, especially the ones that are not awakened, may have no idea what the connection is, and here it is, the resting on the laurels part is on account of energies that thought they were too big to collapse, or too big, like I was saying, like way too big to fail. 203 popping up on the clock. And eBay is the reason why. It's some type of alert, which I rarely get from eBay because I hardly shop on there. But at 203, which is what, a 5. That's crazy. So yeah, like you may just see the effects, or the outcome, whether this could be locally, personally, or on a grander scale, publicly for all to see. You just seeing the demise, not even realizing like, oh, it's justified, or maybe not knowing how so or why so. Okay. Let's see. What's after this Wheel of Fortune here? Ace of Pentacles. I just heard, for the love of money, gotta make this money, man, money, man, money, man. Let's see, what else is on? Because I mean, that's pretty positive, but it also is, it's subjective, like, or is that the right term? Or maybe relative to the recipient, because the Wheel of Fortune and the Ace of Pentacles, that's a gift that, again, like, is relative to the recipient, like maybe overall it's a gift, to creation for certain energies to be exposed or dismantled or dismembered or rendered dysfunctional, because it's, again, for the greatest good of all and for humanity to advance or progress in some naturally, or at least maybe supernaturally faded way. And it's also the same gift, although probably not perceivably so, for those that are finally being put out of their misery to stop the vicious cycle of karma, for it to kind of be halted and redirected. Now, how you respond to that redirection, of course, is within your right to do so, but it's all purposeful when it's divinely ordered. So for some of these leaders to just, kind of be liberated from their lies and their illusions, it's got to be hard to maintain. Like it can't be worth much to maintain, to have to maintain certain practices or ideals or fronts for the sheer sake of survival, or to, hold on to this semblance of dominance and control, or power that really isn't even organic. It's got to be more work than it's worth. But it'd be hard to surrender to that truth on your own when you have gotten to a certain point where this is all you know, or what you've come to rely on. It's hard to kind of like surrender to the truth, to be set free from, or be set free by, because at the point of your own will, it feels like you have too much to lose. But when it's done for you and you have no real control over it, believe it or not, whether they believe it or not, it's quite liberating. And I can imagine that at the core of it, it would feel like almost relieving to not have to live a lie anymore, or not have to live by certain, stringent circumstances, especially by practices that haven't yielded much, but more struggle ultimately, or more to manage, more to handle, more to hide, more to conceal, more facade to cover up in, more people to have to deceive or fool, Yeah, something like that. I don't know why I feel that, but let me see what's on the other side of the Ace of Pentacles. White magic. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, it's just given like, it's just, like I said, it's just divine order at this point for things to be reset and balance. And this is not to say that organized religion is an enemy, to creation in any way, shape, or form, because the best of it is not, like the most organic aspects of organized religion of any sort are usually some benefit to the devotees, but when it's exercised in a pure sense and not corrupted or tainted, in some way, or twisted for some other force that is only looking to objectively benefit from that distortion. But this white magic here is just giving me something, like I was saying earlier, it's like it's an alternative to what is conventional. And sometimes that itself can be scary, and it can feel like a step in the wrong direction against what you already have come to believe for yourself. But a lot of times when you allow yourself to be awakened, and at least enough to curiously explore what you have learned, or how you've been groomed or conditioned, versus what your spirit is naturally calling you to or leading you to, you might find that there is, a great difference, or a great distance between those 2 points. That doesn't even need to be demonized in any way. If anything, is to bring balance to those 2 points, or bring to a centric point, if you can, if there's allowance to do so. So those that are spiritual don't have to denounce religion, and those that are religious don't have to denounce or be afraid of spirituality. because it's something that they fear or that they've been told is an act against God, and therefore, an abomination in some way, shape, or form, or puts them in a position to be condemned. There's something that's being purified about these ideals so that everybody can here it is, start back at one. Whether that's a new journey of discovery, particularly of self, and how you have conformed, or how you can integrate with this more expansive understanding of life and creation for yourself. And of course, for those that, still hold fast to what they believe in, you could have the opportunity to start that cycle all over again for yourself, but it'll never feel the same as it used to, especially once your eyes have been opened to certain things. Some things you just can't unsee. And that's what I'm getting. I feel like there's something that's happening here. And the Ace of Pentacles, like I said, it's a gift to creation, for all to kind of see some type of exposition, or like the same, what's the fragrance? The fragrance, what? What's the passage? I don't know. I can't think of it. But anyway, it'll be like some type of spectacle or realization that, again, even those that will sleep will have to wake up and at least acknowledge that they saw something, or they're aware of something. Now, whether they choose, again, to continue that slumber, or to turn over and hit the snooze, or, it alerts, alarms you to who you've been, comparative to what has been revealed, and what of it is acceptable to you and palatable for you, and what there may be an invitation or opportunity for change and for reform, let alone here with black magic, what's the word? Repentance altogether, but here it is, not in the way of, not for condemnation's sake, but for the sake of change and transition, like just kind of really recognizing that there may be some things that you misunderstood or were misguided by or misled, perhaps intentionally so, from believing about yourself, about the world around you, about the things that we cannot see, or have not been able to physically perceive, maybe up until this point that I'm speaking of, where there's some type of spectacle that is going to be reforming and liberating. Again, relatively speaking, depending on who accepts it and who rejects it. Because in Jesus's time, that's the energy that is given here. Like when there was time for reform, speaking of the Bible, and literally an energy that was sent down from the heavens by the text, birthed into creation as one of those, as one of us, still didn't manage to convince everyone, or to not convince, but what's the word when you convert? There it is, convert everyone, especially those that, again, felt that they held a higher standard of religion at that time, and Judaism, and what the practices should and should not be, and what was blasphemous and what was not, what was sinful and what was not. Like they had all these laws and this and that, and here it is, Jesus coming and just kind of breaking up that whole monotony of life was a threat to those that were, you know, well, I'll say it felt like a danger to those that felt threatened by that projection of authority. Like, we are the authority. So how are you with no title, no pedigree, no prominent pedigree, are going, that they knew of, are going to say you forgive sins, or you know, healing people on the Sabbath, and empowering people to heal themselves, and teaching through parables and not through the holy scriptures. And it's just like a complete disruption of business as usual, life as usual. But it was one that, again, it was distorted, and it was bastardized, and weaponized, and everything, in every way, shape, and form it could be stretched to be, or stretched to be used for. However, the impact is still profound. The impact is still profound. It's still like you can go into any country, more or less, and there'll probably be somebody that is familiar with Christian values, if not a believer of them, for what it's worth to whomever is listening, So the impact is there. And I feel like the white magic is like bringing something back to its purest form. So maybe a second coming, in a sense, but not in the way that it's been projected, or not at the face value that it's been projected to be. The second coming being the awakening in the collective consciousness of your own divine identity. There it is, the 111 and the Trinity. This is amazing. And this is nothing that I haven't said before, but it's just interesting that I just kind of threw that out there in the beginning. It's all, like, I don't understand, like how people can listen to certain messages and just, or not ever listen to a message and just automatically dismiss it or disregard it. That's demonic. Have you ever listened to a message? Have you ever heard, some of the most highly spiritual people interpret these these frequencies? If you ever really listened, you couldn't possibly, like, listen to what I'm saying right now. This is so affirming for those that say, that they want to be free, and really believe that in their proclamation. But when an opportunity is extended, like case in point, in Jesus's time, people were praying for relief and liberation. They were praying for their Savior, or the Messiah, to come and usher them into a new life, usher them onto a new timeline with 2:20 on the clock, 22. Usher them onto a new timeline of abundance, of abundant life, per se. Well, they didn't know really exactly what they were asking for, but they were praying in relief from oppression, and here it manifested itself through their proclamations and their prayers to walk and live and breathe among them, according to the text, of course. And many still rejected it. Many still didn't believe it. Many, again, demonized it. And of course, there were those that believed, and, they carried on that truth, and passed it down and passed it on for themselves and to their legacy. But like I said, it's like something happening 2:21 right now in real time that is going to have that same effect, if not even more profound, because of the day and age that we live in, where it doesn't take as long for good news to travel. Like they say, good news travels fast. It doesn't. In Jesus's time, he had to walk on foot and send disciples, and of course rely on word of mouth, and you know what I mean, and you know how that goes as we're talking about the Bible, to advance his message. And it's still like got distorted like a game of telephone. But in this day and age, it's just a matter of one post, you know, somebody capturing a moment in real time, and it circulating in a viral way that completely changes reality as we've always known it. And I just feel like something like that is happening. And the stark comparison here is because it will shift the focus, once again, from what the established order and leadership has positioned itself to be. In most cases, not so much by appointment. You know, some have ordained themselves to be particular influences, and not always for the best, with the best intentions. But that's, you know, we've talked about that already. But it's going to really like level the playing field to see the truth between these forces and frequencies and everything in between, so that folks can finally make a well-informed decision for their own salvation. I hope that makes sense. Hold on, let me see. Somebody was at my door. I think it's just the mailman. So yeah. All right. So that's that on that. Let's see, where we at? I'm gonna get a few more. I'm gonna try to go fast, but I don't know. I feel like I'm supposed to walk this slow today. Not like I don't most times anyway. But usually I kind of breeze through Kev's cards, but I don't know. It feels like something deeper here that I'm trying to get to. And I'm not really sure if I'm hitting it, but it is my intention to. 8 of Cups. There's too many cards though. Yeah, it's like knowing when to kind of, whoop, is that it trying to come back out? No, that's the Star. I'm gonna take that. I thought that was the 8 of Cups trying to come back out, which I would have taken, because then it'd be like, okay, you really want to be out here. Yeah. Look at the difference here between the 4 of Swords, which we've established is resting on your laurels apparently, and the Star, which is fully awakened, in alignment, in their purpose, answering to their call and their divine design, so on and so forth. It's like the awakening's already been happening, but it's like I feel like something major is getting ready to occur that will, again, advance the movement in an accelerated way. How many is this? That's just 2. 9 of Pentacles and the Queen of Swords. Yeah, that's supreme self-esteem and knowing who you are. What did I say? Like a new initiation of true identity. And 9 of Pentacles up under the Hierophant, that's sovereignty right there. That's literally retrieving your power or reclaiming your power from external forces that have consumed it or assumed to be the authority of it, you know, or the disseminator of it. Like, you can only have power or influence or righteousness if I say so. Kind of like I was saying, the spiritual authorities of Jesus's day were the ones that kept the law and governed everyone else accordingly, even sometimes when they didn't govern their own damn selves, you know? And this is like literally taking your power back, your sovereign authority back. And the Queen of Swords, you know, that's just undoubtedly being sure of truth for you as you see it, which is a stark comparison to kind of being in an illusion, because with the Five of Pentacles, illusions are scarce, theoretically and actually. Like when there's information that is missing, or something you don't know about yourself, or something that's been withheld from you, 9 times out of 10, it's going to inflict a reality of poverty, even if it's just your mindset alone, or insecurity in some way, instability, because you don't know or haven't been supported to believe how much authority you actually do have over your own life to create the most ideal situation. That's a strong ass energy right here. Like, damn. The Star, 9 of Pentacles, and the Star also signifies this display effect. You know, this public display effect that I'm talking about, where something is going to be undeniable. You won't be able to unsee what you see or unlearn what you've discovered or dismiss what you've discovered, unless you just insist upon it. And then it's like, well, that's your right too. That's your sovereign right, you know? And nobody can be mad at that. Three of Pentacles. What's the Three of Pentacles here? Under black magic, some type of corruption, perhaps, that's still maybe going to look to pick off of the scraps of those that refuse to see or refuse to believe. This could even be those that are, you know, kind of sharing the scraps or the crumbs of what's left behind. Again, because it's most reliable. It's in an illusionary way, it seems most sustainable, most safe. Yeah, like safe and non-threatening. But really, it's a spell. You know, in my utopian mind, I would just want to believe that a revelation that, you know, that is irrefutable would just change the hearts and minds of everybody, like in one full sweep, you know, like, oh, it must be safe, it must be true, it must be right, it must be at least conceivable or considerable, you know. But there are going to be some that just they like what they have, and they're comfortable with where they are and what they know and what they do and what they believe, and that's just that. And like I said, that's okay. That's okay. A few more and then I'm out the door. Three of Cups. 3-3 here. 33 is obviously significant. And 22. I think 22 is a master builder number, or is that 33? Let me see. Because 22 came up on the clock. That's why I said that. Let me see. 22. Master. 22 is Master Builder, powerful rare number representing the ability to turn high-level dreams into tangible, large-scale reality. Okay, you got that. Let's see. 33. I forget what that one is. Spiritual awakening, compassion, master teacher. Oh, shit. Master teacher. So we got master builder and master teacher that came out. Wow. I forgot that in this message. Man. And look, there's the difference between those that will continue, to feed the flesh exclusively and those that will nourish the spirit. Like a great split or divide here. And maybe there's, and like I said, in the perfect world, for me, it's definitely a little bit of both, because I say you can't negate the flesh altogether. However, I mean, even Jesus, after his walk through the wilderness, had to eat at some point. So he ended up, he did eat. He didn't die of starvation or, dehydration. But, I feel like it's definitely more of a distinction of energies more than it is unification at the onset, or maybe at the point of revelation initially. But of course there's, oh look, Seven of Wands. Hold on, let me see what's this. I think that's mature man. Oh, King of Pentacles. Seven of Wands. I was really just looking at the picture, but the Seven of Wands is like that protective energy, like protecting your peace, standing your ground on what you believe, what you know, defending your actions or intentions. But I love that the Seven of Wands in this case is like almost a peaceful defense, because it's like kind of just knowing that your choices precede you in protection. Like you don't really have to raise arms or get vengeful or up in arms about anything. You just have to stand firm on what you believe, and then in a experience such as this, where it's a bit polarizing to say the least, that's really the only defense that you have. It's not even worth being offensive to those that may not share your sentiments, which I wish more of us would learn, but we've been conditioned to be combative and divisive, unfortunately. But it's like giving everyone else space to live, allowing people to having the what's the right word? Having the damn it, what's the word that I just heard? The philosophy to live and let live, and that be enough. That means that I don't have to condemn you because you don't believe what I believe, and I don't have to be offended even by your condemnation of me for believing what I believe. If that's the position that you want to take, so be it, because what's true for me is secure in this little bubble called my auric field, and that should be good enough. And hopefully that position will ultimately become contagious and infectious to materialize here in a rich way, in a prosperous, productive way that does resonate in the physical form, like physically, materially. And also the display. Look at this. This is interesting. What may resound most is how this force of faith And this white magic card does materialize. That's the part that's irrefutable. That's the part when we talk in dollars and cents and things that you can measure and touch and taste and see. Well, I mean, sort of, because like I said, Jesus was healing people all over the place, and some people still didn't believe, or they thought he was doing it under some demonic authority. So again, there will always be the naysayers, but I feel like the display in the material form will definitely be undeniable. So that power of faith won't just be an ideal or something like a concept or even a philosophy. It will begin to actually take form. And that will be the way that it will be hard to dismiss. You will really have to want to rock your own self back to sleep to say it's anything other than what it, exemplifies itself to be. So, Page of Swords, yeah, that's the observance. The observance of truth, of the reality right in front of you, which again, you have to be the interpreter of what your eyes behold. Like it has meaning according to what you decide and assign to it. So you can have 10 people looking at one thing and they might have their own interpretation of it. Which is really interesting when you think about, the construction of the Bible, considering just that fact alone. When you think about even the Gospels, how most of it is like some of it, not most, I don't think most of it, but some of it are like the same stories told in a different way by different, disciples and stuff. And it's interesting, that when you think about, our agreement for those of us that have grown in the Christian faith or any organized religion, but your agreement to assume that this is the absolute word of God without any, if, ands, or buts about it. Considering that your experience of God and with God is so different than maybe people that you intimately share a life with, that can't be true. That's literally impossible. It is an inflection of many accounts, but it's not absolute, and it's not all there is. So if that wasn't the case then, certainly in this, this transition into a new era, it's astounding that some may still be astounded that there's yet more to learn and to understand about the divine and about ourselves. But that much is true. So much more to learn. Four of Cups, and here it is. Some will receive it and believe it, and some will not. And that's just that on that. What more can be said? Some will be urged by their intuition that what they are witnessing, what they are intuiting, what they're learning, what they're being inspired by is safe, it's sound, it's secure, it's dependable, it's trustworthy, it's honest, it's prosperous, it's productive, and they'll still say, nah, I'm gonna stick with my 3 cups over here, or my 3 pentacles over here. Really more so emphasis on the pentacles, where it's kind of pointing to anyway. It's like, I see what you're saying, but I don't know. I know what my eyes just saw, but it's just skeptical, which is not which is understandable on so many accounts, but at some point in time, especially in this day and age, literally, you are responsible for what you believe and what you don't. That onus is not on anyone else but you. So you can choose to rest on your laurels according to what has always been translated to you and for you, or transmitted as truth with no fact checking really, or no consideration of missing information, or what more there is beyond what meets the eye. And then of course, even because like I said, it's coming to a point where things are going to be so evident in the physical form that you can't even just say anymore, like, this is just fantastical, or this is just an idea, or philosophy, or pseudoscience. You know, if you know, you know. You're gonna have to well, I can't say have to, but you do get to give respect where respect is due, or acknowledgement where acknowledgement is due. And even that within your own self that you may have suppressed, you know, truth within your own possession that you suppressed for out of fear or discomfort. It's coming to a point where the truth is just banging down doors this time around. Because where it could be contained and confined for much longer periods of time, there's just not that liberty anymore. Good news travels fast. I think it's just news travels fast, but I like the good news part. Shout out to Jesus. All right. I will leave it there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, I'll leave you with peace.